A $750 million dinner in the heart of Silicon Valley, the emblem of the American dream. But that night didn't end with a handshake, rather, with an upheaval that silenced the entire room. There, the arrogant were defeated by the voice of the invisible, and by the unyielding spirit of America. The deal-making dinner unfolded at Sky Haven, San Francisco's most luxurious rooftop restaurant. From here, the view spanned the bay and the twinkling Golden Gate Bridge at night. Yet, what should have been a historic deal turned into a battlefield of glances, silence, and prejudice. A place where corporate power clashed with cultural and racial biases and the strength of those underestimated in America's diverse society. At the head of the table sat Emma Carter, founder of Nova Health. She built her company from a small garage in Silicon Valley. Tonight, her silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. She spoke little, not because she couldn't, but because she chose not to. Silence was her armor, and behind her, unnoticed by all, was Jasmine Lee, a waitress with a slender frame, warm brown eyes, and the poise of an artist. She wasn't just pouring wine. She observed everything, every word, every scornful gesture, every whispered insult. All the things they thought no one would hear, but Jasmine heard it all. She saw Chen's mocking smirk, Lou's finger snap calling sweetie, and their taunts dismissing Emma as a smug American dreamer. What happened next wasn't just a deal overturned. It was a revolution cloaked in the guise of a dinner, driven by the unyielding spirit of America. This isn't just a business story. It's a story about the underestimated, the overlooked, and the power of women who refuse to be erased. When Jasmine spoke, she didn't just translate. She turned the entire room upside down. Sky Haven perched atop a glass tower. The elegant atmosphere blended with soft jazz notes and unique dim sum burgers. But beneath the surface, a storm of tension was brewing. Chen Wei, CEO of Zhongxin Tech, sat at one end of the table. His sharp gaze was that of someone certain of victory. He whispered to his colleague, "Americans and their startup dreams, so easy to swallow." He didn't see the silver ring on Emma Carter's finger, a secret greater than the $750 million deal, a secret poised to upend everything. Beside him was Liu Qiang, the CFO, younger, sharper, more ambitious. His dark suit was polished, but his gestures betrayed impatience. Both were like wolves in human form, calculating and utterly convinced of their superiority. Across from them was the woman they thought they could easily manipulate, Emma Carter, founder and CEO of Nova Health, a pioneering company in personalized AI diagnostics. Tonight, she was an enigma. Her auburn hair was neatly tied back. She said nothing. She only listened. Her silence unsettled the two men. And then there was Jasmine Lee, the waitress no one noticed. No name on the guest list, no voice in the room. But her eyes were there. She saw Chen Wei's scornful smirk. She saw Liu Qiang's impatient foot tapping under the table. And she saw Emma Carter, calm, confident, holding her ground in a room designed to make her feel small. The battle lines were drawn. The room looked luxurious, but beneath the surface, something cold was simmering. This wasn't just a dinner. It was a test, and no one yet knew who was being tested. The first toast was awkward. Chen Wei raised his glass of California bourbon, delivering a grandiose speech about global partnerships where technology knows no borders, with a calculated smile. Emma merely nodded, silently sipping, embodying the calm of an American entrepreneur. No words needed to assert her presence. Liu Qiang leaned in, whispering to Chen, "Is she agreeing or just nodding? Americans always think they're the center of the universe." Emma said something in English to her aide. The man, expressionless, turned to the table. Miss Carter appreciates your kind sentiments." That was all. Chen went on, waxing eloquent about numbers, timelines, and market share. He gestured as if addressing an invisible crowd. Emma responded with short, calm, measured phrases. Her aide translated always in one sentence, always neutral. Liu Qiang's patience wore thin first. He leaned toward Chen, muttering, "Are we negotiating with a statue? This is ridiculous. Americans and their startup dreams, all just bravado." Chen flashed a polite smile, whispering back, "It's American culture. She's playing her game. Be patient." But Liu wasn't wired for patience. He snapped his fingers at Jasmine, not even looking at her. "Hey, sweetie, more bourbon. We're gonna need it." Jasmine felt the sting behind sweetie. Not the request, but the tone, the unearned familiarity, like an invisible leash. She poured the wine, hands steady, but her eyes were watching. Later, Liu leaned back in his chair, rolling his eyes as the aide translated yet another calm response from Emma. "Seriously," he said loudly, "we could replace her with a chatbot. It'd be more interactive." Chen chuckled. Jasmine saw Emma's face, still calm, but something in her eyes shifted. A wound registered, then swiftly hidden. They weren't talking to her. They were talking over her, around her, through her. They saw a language barrier, but they didn't see what that barrier said about them. To Chen and Liu, Emma was a problem to solve, a name on a contract. To Jasmine, she was a mirror, and she could feel the tension rising. The room wasn't just getting colder, it was cracking. Jasmine Lee always knew how to make herself invisible. No one taught her, but life had, through subtle lessons. In classrooms where she was the only black girl, in stores where she was followed instead of greeted, in interviews where they smiled but never called back. But Jasmine hadn't always lived in the shadows. There was a time when her world was filled with color and sound in Shanghai, China. Her mother was an American diplomat stationed there for nearly a decade. Jasmine grew up amidst bustling streets, vibrant night markets, and quiet calligraphy classes with children who never asked why her skin was different. She learned Chinese before she learned sarcasm, before she learned to flinch at expectations, before she understood what it meant to be other. The language stayed with her, not just in memory, but in tone and instinct. She remembered the rhythm of respect in every sentence. Then her family moved back to America. She realized that fluency in Chinese was only impressive when it came from someone who didn't look like her, that her story wasn't exotic enough, that her intelligence was always questioned because of her appearance. Now, at 25, Jasmine worked 2 jobs to pay for art school in Oakland. She painted at night and served wine with the poise of someone who knew her worth, even if no one in this room acknowledged it. But tonight, watching Emma Carter sit through veiled insults and performative politeness, something stirred in Jasmine. She didn't just see a CEO, she saw a woman fighting a silent battle she knew too well. A woman with power, yet disrespected for her gender, her silence, and the American dream she represented. Jasmine had met Emma before, at a tech conference in Shanghai, where she was an exchange student, and Emma was a guest speaker, talking about the future of AI healthcare protecting data privacy. Their brief exchange had left an impression, Emma's determined gaze and belief in innovation etched in her mind. That was why she could no longer stay silent. The conversation, or what was left of it, began to unravel. Chen leaned back in his chair, fingers tapping the table, as if waiting for someone to cue the next act. Emma sat still, calm, answering each question with a few precise words through her aide. Her silence was steady, her tone respectful, but to the men across from her, it was infuriating. Finally, Liu exhaled loudly, tossed his napkin onto the table, and leaned forward with a smirk. "We want to buy your company," he said. enunciating each word as if speaking to a child. "Do you understand?" Chen laughed, not because it was funny, but because he thought he was in control. Jasmine nearly dropped the wine decanter in her hand. She stood by the service station, pretending to check the wine list, but her ears burned. It wasn't just the mockery. It was the tone, the arrogance that if someone didn't speak like them, they were somehow less. Emma blinked slowly, unflinching, unresponsive, but the air in the room shifted, like a quiet storm approaching. Liu smirked again. Seriously, is this a negotiation or a mime show? And then came the final insult, sharp as a blade. "I swear," Liu muttered to Chen, unaware Jasmine was just steps away. "It's like negotiating with an American bamboo tree, decorative, silent, probably older than it looks." Chen chuckled. "Just get her to sign the contract. She'll never know." Jasmine turned slowly. Her heart raced, not with fear, but with fury. She glanced at Emma, still calm, but she saw a subtle shift in her jaw. A storm held back. Then she felt a hand on her shoulder. Manager Harlan, his voice a harsh whisper. "Don't get involved. Speak only when spoken to. Do your job." Jasmine nodded, but inside something had broken free. Emma spoke softly in English, not through her aide, as if to herself. "Is there anyone here who truly sees my worth?" Jasmine heard every syllable. The words struck her like a chord vibrating deep in her chest. It wasn't just cultural ignorance. It was deliberate. It was systemic. And she could no longer stay silent. The room fell into an eerie stillness. Liu leaned back, pleased with his bamboo jab. Chen poured more bourbon, wearing the smug look of a man who thought he'd won. Emma's aide remained silent. But then Emma spoke again. Softly, a sentence not meant for translation, as if cast into the void, hoping someone might hear. "Is there anyone here who truly sees me?" The words hit Jasmine like a deep resonance. It wasn't just their meaning, but the pain behind them. The pain of being erased in plain sight. Jasmine stepped out from the wall. Her hands trembled slightly, the weight of protocol pressing down, the fear of being fired, Harlan's warning still hot in her ear. But Emma's words made every rule she'd followed feel insignificant. She walked toward the table. The click of her shoes on the hardwood floor echoed in the sudden silence. Chen looked up, irritated. Liu frowned. Harlan froze, incredulous. Jasmine didn't stop. She reached Emma's side, bowed deeply in a gesture of respect, blending American and Chinese etiquette, but with the confidence of an American. Then she rose, looked Emma in the eye, and spoke in crisp, fluent Chinese. "Ms. Carter, I'm sorry for witnessing this disrespect. I know I shouldn't speak, but silence in the face of this injustice is a form of betrayal. I met you at the Shanghai conference, and I can't let your American dream be trampled. If you allow me, I can help." Chen dropped his glass onto the table with a dull thud. Liu's mouth opened, but no words came out. Emma's aide blinked, stunned. Emma's eyes widened, not in shock, but in recognition, like someone lost at sea spotting a lighthouse through the fog. Emma reached out, gently touched Jasmine's arm, and whispered in English, "Thank you for seeing me." And just like that, the balance of power in the room shifted. Jasmine hadn't just spoken. She had changed everything. Emma leaned back in her chair for the first time that night, her eyes never leaving Jasmine. She gave a subtle nod, not just permission, but trust. Jasmine stepped forward, her voice steady now, filling the room like a clear current. "Ms. Carter has requested that I translate her statements moving forward," she said, addressing Chen and Liu. "She believes it's time you understand the full weight of what's being said." Liu laughed nervously. "Fine, let's hear it." Jasmine turned to Emma, exchanging a brief sentence in English, measured and deliberate. Then she faced the table again, her posture straight, her voice calm. Miss Igor Carter would like to begin by discussing the revised contract you brought tonight. Chen reached into his briefcase and slid a leather folder toward Jasmine. It's all there, he said. Clear, fair, more than generous. Jasmine opened the folder, scanning the first few pages. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from focus. She wasn't a lawyer, but nights helping her mother proofread diplomatic briefs had taught her to spot language that sounded generous, but hid sharp edges. She paused at Clause 7b. This clause, she said slowly, gives Zhongxin Tech unrestricted rights to renegotiate all intellectual property licenses post-merger. That includes the AI diagnostic technology Ms. Carter developed. Chen blinked. That's standard merger language, he said. Jasmine shook her head. No, it's deliberately vague. It allows you to sell off her patents, stripping the core technology without needing approval, violating America's core value of data privacy. Liu waved his hand. It's a safeguard, just in case things shift post-acquisition. Jasmine didn't look at him, flipping to another page. Clause 12, she said, her tone sharpening. This non-compete clause is so broad, it doesn't just prevent Ms. Carter from starting a new tech firm. It bars her from consulting, teaching, or speaking at conferences. For 8 years. She looked directly at them now. You're not just trying to buy her company. You're trying to erase her from the industry, to snuff out the startup spirit her silver ring represents. The silence that followed was heavy. Chen's jaw tightened. Liu muttered something under his breath. Their confidence, their smug control was slipping. Emma hadn't spoken, but her face held the quiet satisfaction of a chess player watching a checkmate unfold. Jasmine had cracked the code, and the trap was wide open. The air in the room grew still. Liu fidgeted with his pen. Chen stared out the window, as if the city lights could offer an escape. But there was no way out. Then Emma spoke, her voice soft but carrying a new weight. She signaled her aide. From an inner blazer pocket, the aide produced a small silver device, no larger than a phone. He placed it gently on the table and pressed play. First static, then Chen's voice, sharp and unmistakable. Cut out the incentive clauses. We'll absorb her team. She'll never know. Liu's laugh followed, full of arrogance. She's lost in her American dream. Feed her whatever. She'll sign. The audio was clear, damning, echoing against the wood and glass of the room. Jasmine didn't flinch. She translated the essence of what was said, though the meaning was painfully obvious. They thought Ms. Carter didn't understand. They mocked manipulating the terms, erasing her team, and destroying her legacy right in front of her, banking on her silence. And worse, the recording reveals Chen was once sued for racial discrimination in a prior deal, a secret that will explode on American social media. Liu stood abruptly. Recording private meetings is illegal. Jasmine turned to him, calm. So is fraud. Chen remained seated, but the color drained from his face. For the first time, he truly saw Emma. She wasn't small. She wasn't silent. She was a fortress, and she had just opened fire. Emma didn't smile. She didn't need to. The recording clicked off with a final metallic beep. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was judgment. Jasmine folded her hands in front of her, her voice low but strong. You didn't just underestimate a woman. You picked the wrong woman to challenge. And you forgot that silence doesn't mean surrender. The door slammed open. Jasmine barely had time to turn before Harlan, the restaurant manager, stormed in, his face flushed with fury. Normally cold and composed, speaking in half sentences, tonight he was on the verge of exploding. What the hell was that? He hissed, stepping past Chen and Liu, ignoring Emma entirely. You left your station, inserted yourself into a private meeting, spoke to a guest. You're done, Jasmine. Fired. Immediately. Liu scoffed. Finally, something this place gets right. Jasmine clenched her jaw, hands at her sides, but inside, her chest burned, not with regret, but with a sharper fire. She knew she'd done the right thing, and this was her reward. Harlan snapped, "Pack your things! Security will escort you out." Jasmine was about to respond, but a deep voice cut across the room. "Actually, she's not going anywhere." Everyone turned. A tall, sharply dressed black man stood just inside the doorway. Marcus Reed, about 40, clean-shaven, calm as a surgeon. His Navy suit didn't flaunt wealth, but his presence spoke volumes. A successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur embodying America's diversity and equal opportunity. "I'm Marcus Reed," he said, stepping forward. "Director of Pacific Innovation Network, Nova Health's key financial partner in the U.S. I've been in the main dining room for the past 20 minutes, watching this unfold, listening to that recording, seeing how each of you behaved." He looked at Harlan. "Jasmine isn't getting fired. She deserves an apology. She showed integrity, the core of the American dream." Harlan opened his mouth, but no words came. Marcus turned to Jasmine, his gaze making her feel truly seen, not as staff, but as a person of value. "You were the only one in this room who understood what integrity looks like, and you defended the startup spirit Silicon Valley stands for." The room was quiet now, still charged, but no longer tense. Harlan backed away, shoulders stiff with humiliation. Chen and Liu sat silently, their power drained, their arrogance now almost pitiful. Jasmine stood in the center of it all, her apron still neatly tied. But everything else about her had shifted. She was no longer just a waitress. She was the woman who had changed a multi-million-dollar deal with her voice and courage. Emma turned to Jasmine, her expression softening for the first time that night. She spoke gently in English. "You saw me when no one else did." Jasmine nodded, choked up. Marcus stepped forward. "Ms. Carter has an offer. She wants to invite you to join Nova Health's global strategy team, not just as a cultural liaison, but as an executive aide, someone who hears the unspoken, who listens between the lines. You'll lead the expansion of our AI data privacy initiatives in the U.S., advise on international partnerships, and oversee the company's diversity programs. Your tuition will be covered for any art program you choose, anywhere in the world. Housing near our offices will be provided, along with a salary that reflects the value you've already proven." Jasmine felt her breath catch. The ground beneath her felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. Emma stood, walking slowly to face Jasmine. She didn't offer a handshake. Instead, she took Jasmine's hand in both of hers. "You saw me," she said in clear English. "I'm honored," Jasmine whispered. Emma smiled. "Then come with us. There's real work waiting, building the American dream for everyone." The fallout was swift and brutal. Within 48 hours, news of the failed negotiation leaked, not from Emma or Jasmine, but through Silicon Valley's back channels. The recording, discreetly shared with lawyers and partners, reached corporate oversight committees. And the revelation of Chen's prior racial discrimination lawsuit exploded on American social media, from Twitter to Reddit. The hashtag #SiliconJustice spread like wildfire, tanking Zhongxin Tech's reputation. Zhongxin's board acted fast. Chen Wei was asked to resign in a closed-door meeting lasting less than an hour. Liu Qiang resigned 2 days later, citing personal reasons. But everyone knew the truth. Investors panicked. Shareholders demanded answers. The press had a field day. The story was simple but powerful. 2 Chinese executives caught trying to manipulate and erase the legacy of an American founder, stopped by a black waitress who simply spoke the truth. Headlines wrote themselves, "From Waitress to Hero, the woman who halted a multi-million-dollar scheme in Silicon Valley." Social media called it poetic justice. Comments flooded with praise for Jasmine Lee, for Emma Carter, for the simple but radical act of speaking up when it mattered most. As for Chen and Liu, their reputations were shattered beyond repair. Doors that once opened automatically now stayed shut. Speaking invitations at conferences were quietly withdrawn. Future partnerships vanished like morning mist. They had underestimated one woman's silence and another's voice, and in doing so, reminded the world of a truth they'd forgotten. True power doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears an apron. And sometimes, the people you think don't matter are the ones who change everything. This isn't just a story of corporate betrayal or a dramatic twist. It's a story about visibility, about dignity, about what happens when the world mistakes silence for weakness and dismisses people for their appearance, their origins, or the apron they wear. Jasmine Lee was never just a waitress. She was a young woman carrying years of experience, a deep understanding of culture, and a quiet strength most overlooked. She saw what others refused to see. She heard what others ignored. And when the moment came, she chose courage over safety. And Emma Carter, yes, she was a multi-million-dollar founder. But that night, she was also a woman spoken over, underestimated, reduced to a stereotype. Her power wasn't in her wealth. It was in her composure, her discipline, and her choice to wait, not for the right deal, but for the right person. Both women faced a room that tried to define them by their silence, but in the end, they redefined that room. The truth is, most people don't see what's right in front of them. They see titles, skin color, job descriptions. They judge, categorize, and move on. But the world changes when someone stops and truly listens. So, never underestimate the quiet ones. Never ignore the person clearing your table, answering your call, or sitting silently at the end of a meeting room. You don't know what they know or what they're capable of. And if you're one of those quiet ones, if you've ever felt invisible, undervalued, overlooked, know this: your voice matters. Your presence matters. And one day, when it counts most, the world will hear you.